What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Build with the CEO. I'm your host, Trevor, and it is Tuesday at noon, and that means we are live in Facebook. We are live on YouTube. So make sure you drop any questions, comments inside of those chats. Facebook always gives me a hard time, but I'll see if I can pull them up. But welcome, everyone. Thanks for watching. And today we are talking about our offer, how to build an offer that sells. So our August theme is attention and attraction, right? And last week we talked a lot about your ICP, your ideal client profile. Some call it your perfect client, some call it your ideal client, right? The person that you're serving. And so that is step one. So if we don't truly understand our ICP, go back, listen to last week's episode. Definitely get the GPT that Kane created that will take you through the entire platform. Or won't take you through the entire platform. It'll take you through the exercise to define your ICP. That's really what it's all about. But before I get into this episode, I gotta talk about this swag that Kane sent me, a new T-shirt with the new logo. Man, these are called Next Level Tees. I don't have any affiliation, whatever, but it is like a 65-35 polyester cotton blend. Whew, these things are money. It's like silky smooth. I can't even concentrate. This thing is so smooth. So anywho, let's get to it. Today, we are talking about how to build an offer that sells and ultimately that scales. Because at the end of the day, people don't buy coaching, they buy outcomes. Okay, so take a second to let that sink in. People don't buy coaching, they buy outcomes. Okay, so let's start with the problem, right? And the problem is not really the product, right? It's the problem. What is the problem that the client has? And if you can describe the problem better than your client can, they're going to assume that you have the solution. And that's why last week is so important in understanding your ICP. And if you're a brand new coach, it's worth doing a ton of one-on-one coaching to really understand the problem at the deepest level, right? Because most coaches, and I put this out in the group, and I asked the group, I was just curious, hey, what is your offer, right? And the vast majority of people came back with one-to-one coaching, with all of the features of their offer, the workouts, the macros, the check-ins, all of those kind of things. We talk about the features of it, and they really build their offer by listing what they do, right? And this is a little bit backwards because the client doesn't really care. And I use this example ad nauseum. But if a client could sit on the couch, watch Netflix, eat potato chips, and lose 20 pounds, they would choose that solution over something else, right? Over working with you that requires some hard work. Why is Ozempic and all these other semaglutides so popular? Because I just have to take a pill and then I eat less because I'm not hungry, right? It's easier. And easy doesn't necessarily mean bad. But if we talk about all the things that the client has to do in our program, it's going to feel like a lot. And people don't want a lot. They want easy. And so we talk about the problem that they have, and then we talk about our solution. And the things that you include in your solution, if it's macros, if it's habit tracking, if it's workouts, if it's check-ins, those are part of your method. Right? Those are the ways that you ensure the client gets the result. And so we have to dig in, like, what is the problem that your ICP, your ideal client, wakes up thinking about? Can we define that pain point in their own language, not in your own language, right? In their own language. Good example here is toning, right? In the workout world. What does toning mean? No one really knows, right? But toning typically to the client means this combination of like some fat loss, but also some kind of muscle building where we expose more muscle, right? Somewhere, somehow, someone came up with the word toning. Cool, right? Let's speak in those terms, right? And then when we think about that problem, right, is this a bleeding neck problem, or is this just like a paper cut type problem? Is it a problem I need to solve right now, or is it just a problem that I can maybe just put a Band-Aid on and not worry about, right? We want to find those quote unquote terrible. It's like, I don't love this analogy, but a lot of people use it, but the bleeding neck problem. And so can we find that thing that is an emergency right now that I need to take care of, right? Those are the problems people buy solutions to. And I'll give you an example here. And this is really kind of a generic example. I would probably niche this even a little bit more, but busy moms who want to lose 20 pounds without giving up wine or family dinners, right? That can be an easy way to start framing it. Hey, that's our offer, right? And so I would probably even try to figure out a smaller niche if I am online only, something different than just like busy moms. But you get the picture, right? It's clear who we're targeting. It's clear what the result they can expect to get. And it's clear that they're going to be able to do it without having to give up all the things that they love. Okay. So that's like step one. We start with the problem. And last week was really, really important in that. And so if you haven't done the ICP, if you haven't gone through the GPT that we've created, do that, because that will help you to start to understand the problem at a deep level. And this step is like extremely important. Too many coaches jump to, hey, I just got this macro certification, or I just got this habit certification, or I just got this behavior change certification. And so I'm going to go out there and put my offer out there. But we're speaking from what we have, what our knowledge is, and what we're passionate about, not what the problem the client actually is aware of right now. Okay. So that's step one. We start with the problem. Step two, we really need to define the transformation, right? Because people don't want coaching. They want what coaching gets them, right? People don't want to have to take a flight to the Bahamas. They want to sit on the beach with a Mai Tai. And so we have to think about it from that lens. Okay. So where is your person right now? Okay. And that again goes back to that understanding our ICP. Where are they right now? Okay. What is their current state? Point A. Where do they want to go? Point B. Okay. And all of that time and space in between is the gap. And that's where your coaching becomes the map to take them from point A to point B. Because they maybe understand they want to go to point B, but they don't know how to get there, right? They don't have an airplane, right? They don't have a means to get there. And that's the hole the coaching is going to fill. So we really need to start painting this like emotional picture of success, right? What does it look like when they're at point B? What does it look like when they've lost the last 10 pounds? What does success look like from an emotional standpoint, not always from like a physical standpoint? Is it confidence? Is it energy? Is it freedom? Right? What's the emotional state at the destination? And then what is the current emotional state that we're in, or that the client's in, right? And then we can talk about how our method gets them from where they're at now to where they want to go. And in that, can we use stories, right? Humans buy with emotion, and then they justify what they've done with logic, right? So we need to bring an emotional component into this, because that is part of the offer. So a simple prompt here is, what does life look like 90 days after your program for that client? What's changed? And this is actually a really good question that I ask in almost every, we call them success sessions. It's essentially a sales consultation with every client, is if we were to sit down here 90 days, 6 months, 12 months, whatever we decide is a time frame, what would need to happen in that time frame, in those 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever, for you to feel like this was an absolute smashing success, right? And then the client will be able to tell you what success looks like, right? And then we build the plan to get them there, right? Because we don't want to put success on that client. Sometimes as coaches, we have like, I think the client should do this or should lose weight or do that, but the client has a different definition of success, right? And they might have lost 10 pounds, but they don't stay a client because that's not what they were looking for. And the best way to figure out what they're looking for is to ask. And that's a really good question. You know, if your program is, let's say, 90 days long, you know, as part of that initial consultation, you know, if we were sitting down having a conversation 90 days from now and you were doing the program, what would need to happen in those 90 days for you to feel like, man, that was a great last 3 months. Right? It might not have been easy, it might have been hard, but like I made a ton of progress. And your goal as a coach is to figure out what progress means to that client. Okay. So once we have those two down, once we have started with the problem, right, we can describe the problem, then we've really started to define what transformation looks like. We've defined the destination. Okay. And then what's included, right? The framework of your offer still matters. You just don't lead with it, right? And the framework of the offer, right? And this is where most people, when I ask, hey, what is your offer inside of our Facebook group? This is what most people led with. They led with a 12-week program, a 6-month program, a group coaching program, right? They led with a modality, 1-to-1, small group, do it yourself plus check-ins, those kind of things, right? And they even added in some bonuses. Maybe it's calls, maybe it's tech support, maybe it's app, maybe it's education, maybe it's a community, right? And then maybe they added some bonuses in like meal plans, grocery guides, movement challenges, things like that. Right. But these, all of these things are your method. These are your secret sauce. This is your secret sauce. These are the things that you've learned over the years in working with tens, hundreds, thousands of people to figure out what's the most efficient way to go from A to B. And when we list these type of things inside of our offer, we want to list them with a phrase, so that. We do one-to-one coaching so that you get the attention you need and the accountability you need to be successful. We provide meal plans so that you don't have to think about what you're eating every single day. We provide the exact macros so you know exactly how much to eat every day without having to give up your favorite foods. If you want a candy bar, cool, it can fit into your macros. We provide recipes so you don't have to search the internet endlessly trying to find the perfect recipe. We've, included 20 time-tested, less than 30-minute, kid-approved recipes that you can just plug and play, and you're going to save yourself 30 minutes from searching for that perfect recipe, right? So we can use these features so that, right? So it helps to build our offer. And we want to talk about how these features support the transformation. Like, this is your method, and this is how we get them to that transformation. Okay. And so, review again. We start with the problem. Okay. Not the product. So we start with the problem, right? Then we define the transformation. What does the destination look like? And then ultimately what's included. This is your delivery bonus, but we use the phrase so that it's like features, so that benefit, right? We want to make sure that we're doing it that way. And then finally, we're going to have some price anchors and some framing, right? Because ultimately you're selling outcomes. And this was actually really common in the personal training world. And this is fresh in my mind because I just had a call with a coach yesterday about this, where we used to sell packages, right? We used to sell a 20 pack, a 25 pack, a 30 pack. And then, you know what? If you buy a 30 pack, we'll give you a 10% discount, right? In like, the logic here in my mind is a little bit flawed. This idea of volume discounts, right, comes to us from the kind of physical product world, where if I buy 100 of something, right, I get a discount because I'm buying more. But with physical products, typically, as you scale them, you can produce them cheaper, right? And so potentially it costs less to produce 100 products than it does to produce 2 products, product by product, right? Because there's all these other things that are involved, so that shipping, packaging, yada, yada, yada. And so it actually is cheaper. And then we're passing that savings on to the customer. But we think about it from a service industry, right? If I'm defining 1 hour of time, right, as a session, and I'm going to give you 25 sessions. Let's say I define an hour of my time at $100 an hour for easy math, right? And 25 sessions. So we have $2,500. But now if I give you a discount of, let's say, hey, you buy 25 sessions rather than 10 sessions, and maybe you get a 20% discount. Cool. Now I'm valuing that time at $80 an hour, but I'm actually still putting in the same amount of time, and I'm not actually saving I'm not saving anything. right? Because I'm doing 25 instead of 10 sessions isn't any more efficient for me. But I'm just hoping that because you're buying more sessions that you'll stay longer rather than just like over delivering massively, finding the right clients to work with and then keeping them for a long time. So a lot of coaches had to make the shift from the late 90s, early 2000s into this idea of selling outcomes. Okay. That's ultimately what we sell as coaches is an outcome. We sell the destination. And that's what people invest in solving real problems, right? We're not selling packages. We're not selling sessions. We're not selling any of that stuff. We're selling an outcome. The client has a problem. You have a map to the solution, right? And the client wants to get to point B, and you have the ticket to get there, right? And the ticket costs this much, right? And if you buy 10 tickets, it isn't any cheaper, right? So don't think about it as selling sessions. Think about it as selling outcomes. Okay. So is your pricing based on time or their result, right? If I'm selling 25 sessions, right, it's based on time. I give this much time, I get that in return, right? But if I'm selling on results, that's much different. If I can get the result in less time, that's actually more valuable. I can charge more, right? Because there's more efficiency. The client's getting to their end result much faster. Okay. Some people will say kind of having tiers, good, better, best. Actually, I'm not a huge fan of that. And I had a call with the coach yesterday, and we were talking through her model. And she had 3 tiers. She kind of had her base tier, she had her medium tier, and then she had her elite tier. And I'll kind of give you just the basic framework. So a lot of coaches, I think, have these tiers. So they have their base tier, which is maybe more of like a generic group coaching model, and then they have their middle tier, which is like a curriculum set, maybe with workouts, nutrition, some individualization there, and then we have our elite tier, which is complete one-on-one, fully customized, right? And so when we were looking at the breakdown of what percentage of her revenue came from each tier, the vast majority, vast majority, right, came from that middle tier. But most of her headaches were coming from the low tier. And so from the outside looking in, the easy thing, and you're all probably thinking this if you're listening to this, is like just cut the low tier, right? If all my headaches are coming from the low tier and it makes a very small percentage of my revenue, I shouldn't say a non-significant percentage, but it makes a smaller percentage of my revenue, right? As a business, like just cut that and go all in on that tier. I think most coaches would do better with going all in on their signature program, on their solution to a very specific problem, and just rallying behind that rather than saying, well, we have this option, we have this option, and we have this option. Especially early on, if you have a ton of options, you're going to run yourself ragged. Like one offer. What's your offer? One offer, solve the problem. And then on the back end of that, maybe you have a continuity model, a retention model, a model where someone can continue to work with you, but at a lower price point. I found that to be much better of a solution for coaches early on. And so I just had a question in Facebook. So feel free, or not Facebook, just had a question in YouTube. So feel free to just put your questions in the chat. I've got it open on another screen, so I'll just make sure I put those things up. Facebook, I don't know about you guys. I don't know if I can see those. So we'll see if I can change some screens around here to be able to do that and see some of those questions. No, I still don't see anything popping up. So if there is Facebook stuff, thanks for posting, but I don't really see anything at this point. Okay. So for most coaches, find your solution and go all in on that. Okay. And then keep raising the price on your solution until you start to have not the majority, but some of the people starting to say no. If every call that you're on and people say yes to every single time you say, hey, here's what our program costs, yeah, no problem. Okay. We're probably too cheap and we need to increase the price on that. Okay. We need to increase the price on that until we have about 40% of people, give or take, saying no. Okay, and then we know we've hit about the right kind of price to market fit. And so then we can do a few things, right? We can change our market. potentially go up market, solve a bigger problem, right? So then we can ultimately charge more. So there's some moves we can make there. But one offer, just think one offer, right? Don't get convoluted with all of these different offers. Have your one offer, go all in, especially if you're in the online world. And that offer can be different, right? And when I say offer, I mean, I'm talking a little bit about features here and like what's included, the delivery. So if you are a brand new coach, new to the industry, just got your certification, super excited, passionate, awesome, don't do a group don't do a group coaching program. Go one-to-one, because you probably don't know what problem you're solving yet, right? You probably have a smaller network, right? And so you're maybe going to get a little wide variety of people. And so figure out the problem that you're going to solve. And you can do that in a one-to-one model very quickly. So start coaching people for free or at a discount with a time frame. This is the mistake I see a lot of new coaches make, is they just like want to coach people for free to get their feet wet a little bit, and understand how to coach people and learn a little bit more, but they don't put an end date on it. And so they keep coaching people for free for a really long time. And then there's this resentment that starts to build as their skills start to improve. Right. And so we need to put a time frame on it, whatever it is, 12 weeks, 8 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever you decide. But put a time frame on it for the people that you're coaching at a discount, or for free. And then if it all goes well, pitch them into your normal coaching program after that, or into the normal coaching relationship after that. Right. And so a few other things here that we can do, that is interesting. I think, especially in potentially the gym world or the high ticket sales world, is kind of anchoring some premium offers. And so I know I said that kind of go all in on one offer, and I still stand behind that, but I think we can have potentially a couple variations on that. One variation being a high touch type of offer, super high ticket type of offer, because we can use that as an anchor to our kind of main offer if we need to. Right. That might be one-to-one coaching, one-to-one personal training, things like that. And that is, $5,000 or $1,000 a month or something like that. And if someone's like, I maybe don't need quite that much, then when I go to my normal offer of maybe $500 a month, that becomes very attractive. So we can use this concept of anchoring, which is probably a complete episode all on its own, to help make our main offer feel really good, feel like we're almost getting a deal. Because sometimes people, especially in the online world or the coaching world, are comparing you to, let's say, Planet Fitness, right? $10 a month, right? Which isn't a fair comparison. That's like a ribeye to apples comparison, right? And so sometimes we need to give them an anchor to know what coaching is actually worth, right? And so a simple line that you can use as well is, if this program solved the problem you've been struggling with for years, would it be worth X? Right. And if someone says yes, then like they've ultimately agreed to the price. And then we back all of this up with social proof, right? Instead of trying to explain everything, it's kind of like, here's a wall of proof, right? These are all the people that have success with my program. They look a lot like you, and they put in the work and they got the result, right? You don't need to say anything more at that point. And if we don't have the social proof right away, we want to start building that as we go along. Okay. So I'll just pop over here to a question in YouTube. So the question was, I teach calisthenics. How can I use this for my clients? Okay. So step one is to figure out what's the problem you're solving with calisthenics, right? And so if we're trying to attract people, calisthenics is your method, right? And so we have to figure out the problem that our clients have that our method can work for. Okay. And so maybe it's for people that don't have access to a weight room. Maybe it's for people that have had bad experiences. Maybe it's for people that want low impact or something like that. So we really have to define what problem our clients have, what their destination is. They want to get fit without a gym, right? And so once we understand that, they've then given us permission to be able to teach the skills to our clients, right? And so I may be wrong, but probably the vast majority of people aren't looking for, hey, their problem is I don't understand calisthenics. And maybe they are. Like maybe there's enough people in there that a big of a market that's like, I want to learn calisthenics, right? And then we can put our solution in front of them. But my guess is we would have to go a little bit deeper than I just want to learn calisthenics, right? They want what do they want to achieve with calisthenics, right? Is it confidence? Is it losing weight? Is it getting stronger? Starting to answer those questions, and then calisthenics is simply the method to get there. But it would be getting fit without a gym, or getting strong without weights, yada yada yada. And so we can use those in our framing to then our method is calisthenics, right? That's our unique special sauce. So last piece that we want to talk about is our name. We want to name our offer. Okay. And we want to keep this simple. We want to keep it clear, but giving it some sort of fun name, right? Great one. Great one here is P90X. What the heck does P90X mean? You know what? It means absolutely nothing, right? What does muscle confusion mean? Anybody? Bueller? Muscle confusion. What does it mean? It means absolutely nothing. It's a made up term, right? But these are things, it's language that someone can adopt that's specific to this particular method, this particular protocol, right? And so we want to keep things really, really simple and really, really clear, right? Lean in 12, dad bod reset, strong AF in 90 days, right? Old man strength program. Shout out to Jeremy Scott, right? We want to keep it really clear in the name, because if we are driving cold people to it, it's like, okay, what am I going to get? Oh, lean in 12. Okay, I'm lean in 12 weeks. Okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? Dad bod reset. Okay, cool. Like I understand what that means. And then we want to think about even with our naming, having some different phases. I think this is really important too. Maybe it's a reset, maybe it's a rebuild, and then maybe it's a refine. It's the R3 method, right? Figure out a way to name things so that people can latch on to that language and have a clear path moving forward, right? This adds some structure, it adds some progression, and it really adds some authority behind it as well, that, hey, we have this thought out process to go through this, right? And so like we might sometimes think we're being clever with our name, but like honestly, the clear beats clever every day of the week, right? Because if I can clearly understand it, a confused buyer is a non-buyer, right? We want someone confident in what they're buying. Okay. So I think that kind of gives you an idea on offer, right? And so when someone asks you what your offer is, right? Let's try to get away from the one-to-one coaching, group coaching, macros, habit. That's your method. That's how you get it, how you deliver. That's how you deliver on the promise of your marketing, right? But really what your offer is like, we help I'm going to use the term busy moms again because I can't think of anything better at the time, right? Here, I'll use a different one. We help girl moms, right? So made it a little more specific. We help girl moms lose 10 pounds in just 2 short workouts a week without having to give up family time or wine with dinner, right? That's really what we offer, right? It's the who, right? The girl moms, what they're going to expect, 10 pounds of weight loss, 10 pounds of fat loss, right? And then time frame, what's the time frame that it's going to be in, right? 2 short workouts a week, in 6 short weeks, in 12 weeks, whatever it may be. And then without having to give up something, right? Without counting macros if it's more habit-based, right? Or without having to give up your favorite foods, right? If it's maybe a little bit more macro based. And so we want to add all of those pieces in. And that's really what our offer is, right? That is our offer. Our offer is not coaching. It's the outcome, right? The coaching is simply the map to the destination. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of some kind of maybe some thoughts, some insight into how you're crafting this stuff, because this really, really matters. And it's actually the reason why we're talking about this in week 2 of our attention and attraction month. Week 1 is all about ICP. I think that needs to be first, your ideal client profile, your perfect client. That needs to be defined first. Then we figure out our offers, because we know our ideal client. Now we can figure out what's the solution to their problem. And that's ultimately my offer, right? The solution to their problem. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about marketing. We're going to be talking about organic marketing. We're going to be talking about micro commitments. And so moving people along this buyer's journey to ultimately working with you as a client. But these other 2 things need to be done first, my ICP and my offer. Now everything else becomes exponentially easier, because it's really, really clear. I have clarity in who I'm talking to and the problem that I'm solving. Then making content becomes way, 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 way easier. Okay. And then it helps make your sales a lot easier too, because you're extremely confident in what you're doing and you don't have 50 offerings, right? This is your offering right here. So, my guess is if you're really struggling to get traction, it's probably not your coaching, right? If you're listening to this, if you're diving into how to be better, if you've done the certification, if you've worked with people, it's probably not your coaching. It's your offer. So let's dig into that. Watch this episode again, go through the steps, right? And create an incredible offer. Sell the transformation, not just a list of features. Okay. So that's all I got. Go out there, create some awesome offers. If you need any help, feel free to tag me. Facebook is where we spend most of our time. So get in there, tag me on it, drop your offer in there and you want. And I'm happy to give some feedback. So my name is Trevor. I'm the CEO of Coach Catalyst. If you're not a Coach Catalyst user, go pick that up too. All right. Have a great Tuesday. We'll see you next week. Actually, you won't see me next week. Kane's in next week. I will be in the Smoky Mountains. So you, though, you have a great Tuesday. See ya.